You thought he was done? You thought the takes were too hot to handle? You better think again. He's back with even more scorching opinions, more controversial predictions, and the kind of truth bombs that only Zain Bando can deliver. If you missed the first round, prepare yourself. This is the follow-up you've been waiting for. It's time for Zain Zinger Part 2. Another certified hit from the Empty the Bench Network. Here's your host, Zain Bando.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the final edition of Zain Zinger Part 2 for the month of July. It is Sunday, July 26th, 2026. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for joining me once again on the program here on this beautiful Sunday morning in the suburbs of Chicago. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. To do so, please go to youtube.com/ETB Network. You can follow the main show on social media, which is creeping towards its 100th episode this week. Bando's Breakdown at Bando's Breakdown across all social media platforms, including TikTok as well. And of course, you can listen to all the archives of Bando's Breakdown wherever you get your podcasts. We're in the midst of updating the RSS feed to the latest episode in the show's history. I know a lot of you guys really do enjoy the RSS feed idea with everything, so we're going to keep that rolling here if we can. And I know that you guys really care about that. So we're going to do our best to update that as we go along, as obviously we're hitting a new milestone here shortly. And of course, without further ado, my name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and an ETB Network co-host. You can find my work several places, including MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated, The Sporting News, Field Level Media, Ohio State on Sports Illustrated, and plenty of other syndicates as well across the internet, covering all the latest in Big Ten college football, Big Ten college basketball, and of course, the great combat sports, everything to do mainly with the UFC, with some boxing sprinkled in as well when the fight is appropriate enough. But nonetheless, that's where you can find all my work as well. And yeah, that's sort of a little bit of a brief intro as to what's to come about me. But getting into the stream, though, before we get started with anything else, I do want to give a quick shout out to everybody that's watching and or listening right now. You can catch this stream right now on YouTube and or X, as well as the immediate replay up right afterward across my YouTube channel, the ETB Network YouTube channel, as well as the Twitter feeds of Forever Power 5, the MMA Outsiders, my personal Twitter account, which is at ZainBando99, as well as the ETB Network Twitter account, Bando's Breakdowns, and of course, ETB Sports, which returns tomorrow for a special edition episode because I will be at Big Ten Media Days on Tuesday. So we decided to move the show up a little bit in order to accommodate that. But nonetheless, that is that for now. So thank you guys for tuning in once again. We'll get into the topics now. To begin the stream, we'll be on until about 10:35, 10:40 or so. We already have 60 people almost in here based on my count. But nonetheless, let's get started with the stream, beginning the morning with recapping UFC Abu Dhabi, which took place yesterday morning and afternoon from Etihad Arena at Yas Island, Abu Dhabi. The main event of the evening featured former UFC light heavyweight champion Magomed Ankalaev taking on Bogdan Guskov. Ankalaev gets the job done. 241 into the 5th round there. It was his first fight since losing his light heavyweight title to now former champion Alex Pereira, as Pereira decided to move to heavyweight following that fight. Overall, it was an extremely lackluster performance. Ankalaev, very conservative overall, conservative on his feet. Didn't really try to pressure Guskov all that much. Obviously, Ankalaev got it to the ground in the 5th round, which is where it made the difference. Got in a dominant position, landed some ground and pound, and forced Mark Goddard to stop the fight. Now, there's this huge debate online as to where Ankalaev goes next. I'm going to give him this, though. So I don't think he deserves the next shot at a world title. I really don't. I think if the UFC is smart, and I understand we're quickly flying through what happened in the main event, but the key story here is the fallout of this, and that's going to be what's next for Magomed Ankalaev. Well, he made it very clear to the media on Saturday afternoon that he would like to fight either Paulo Costa, or if Alex Pereira is interested in a rematch against Ankalaev in what would be their 3rd fight. It would be a known trilogy with it being 1-1. He'd be interested in that as well. The question is going to be is UFC brass impressed enough by Ankalaev's performance to give him that title shot? And I'm going to say no, they wouldn't be. I think Hunter Campbell was very disheveled the entire fight. He was sitting there with some, Abu Dhabi world leaders and stuff, and they were asking him questions about it, and he seemed very kind of dismissive in a way. We obviously couldn't hear what he said to them, but it seemed like he really wanted to focus on the fight itself and nothing else, which I can't really blame him for that. But nonetheless, though, looking at post-fight, Ankalaev wants a fight either with Paulo Costa or that rematch with Pereira. I do think him coming back and fighting in Abu Dhabi to prove that this performance wasn't the new normal for Ankalaev would be the smartest thing to do. I think that would be the smartest thing to do from a holistic standpoint, to prove your standing that, yeah, you are a contender in the division, but you're also someone who, cares about, not just remaining the number 1 contender, but also remaining, in that upper echelon of light heavyweight to where, you can be competing for championships again, because the Guskov performance didn't do it for me. He could have dominated him way earlier in that fight than he actually did. And I thought overall it was disappointing from an entertainment standpoint, but Ankalaev was able to get it done. That is my 6th correct main event in a row, dating back to the Manel Kopp fight. And I want to just make mention of this because I got it wrong on the stream. The order so far in this streak is Manel Kopp, Rafael Fiziev, Max Holloway, Dricus du Plessis. I'm sorry. Let's start over. It is Manel Kopp, it is Max Holloway, Dricus du Plessis, and now Magomed Ankalaev. I originally said by accident. That's what I meant to say. By accident on the actual show this past week, I said the Dustin Poirier one. Dustin Poirier is retired and he has bigger things to worry about than professional mixed martial arts. Nonetheless, the streak lives on. The main event streak lives on. We are 500 on the year in that category. We are 12-12. For the card itself, again, for the 2nd week in a row, we struggled immensely, going 5-7. It looked like we were going to get to 6-6, but unfortunately, Steve Erceg ruined those plans, getting knocked out by a very, very seasoned flyweight, a guy that a lot of people think is going to be a contender and teaming off. So I was excited to see how he would do on a big stage, and he did really, really well. The prelims were absolutely outstanding as well, especially the Sam Patterson fight. If you look back at that one, there were a couple other fights that stood out as well. But overall, though, it was a decent card. There were some standout finishes, but overall, the big storyline from this is that Magomed Ankalaev remains a contender at light heavyweight. The question is going to be, was the UFC impressed enough to either give him another fight or give him a title shot? That remains to be seen as well. But yeah, that'll do it for Abu Dhabi, and that also does it for the month of July in the UFC. Next week, they will be in Serbia for another fight night event. It is another afternoon style event. Euros Medic and Daniel Rodriguez will be competing on that one as well. And in fact, looking over at that Serbia card, yeah, Medic versus Rodriguez. And sure enough, yeah, number 14 versus number 15 at welterweight, the way too early odds have Medic as a favorite. We will get to that next week, but that will be August. Let's continue with the July storylines. Actually, this isn't even really a July storyline either, but it was announced in the last several days. Dillon Danis will be competing in mixed martial arts against Mike Perry. Two of the most charismatic personalities in combat sports will be competing in a brand new promotion. And in fact, I'm going to look this up and read the story to you guys because I was really surprised with this. Here we go. Let's take a look at it. Mike Perry and Dillon Danis are scheduled to face one another in a welterweight bout August 29th, 2026 in a new promotion called Duel Arena. That is DUEL Arena. Very interesting on that. It's an online casino brand. It's a mixed combat show is what they're calling it. It's in Orlando. The broadcast details will be announced next week. According to Mike Heck, it says, and this is Mike Heck of MMA Fighting. Shout out to him. I met him last weekend at RAF in Milwaukee. He was awesome. Multiple people with knowledge of the promotion's plans, including a promotion official, confirmed that Perry and Danis are set for a welterweight contest on August 29th in Orlando. Dual Bet is hosting their first combat sports event with the promotion being called Duel Arena. Happy Punch first revealed the news on Instagram, and for those of you in the know, you know who this guy is that I'm about to reference. Duel Arena 1 is set to take place at Key Center and will be a hybrid card featuring MMA, boxing, and kickboxing. Promoter Dean Toole, who is a mastermind behind Game Bred MMA. I went to one of their only shows that they had in Milwaukee, Wisconsin a couple years ago. That was when Roy Jones Jr. fought Anthony Pettis at the Pfizer Forum, which is the home of the Bucks. The bouts will take place in a ring, not a cage, including the Perry versus Danis contest. Toole says that the card will include some influencer bouts, as well as a few other UFC veterans to be announced very soon. I'm sure it'll be announced within the next week, given the timeline of when this fight is supposed to take place. Again, it's August 29th in Orlando. Obviously, these guys are two guys that have been around the scene for a long time. Dillon Danis has been kind of inactive. He's more so gone the influencer route. And Mike Perry has also kind of done the same thing, but he's been a fixture in bare knuckle boxing, has had fights with the likes of Jake Paul and a couple other major names, just recently competed against Nate Diaz on the Netflix card, if I'm not mistaken as well. There's been so many cards that I can't keep track. Let's double verify that as well. I'm pretty sure that I am correct on that. But yeah, Mike Perry, 15-8 overall as a professional. He was 7-8 in the UFC. And yeah, I was right. Nate Diaz was his last fight, winning by corner stoppage. Yes, I do remember that. Nonetheless, though, that is August 29th. We will get to that when we can further on in the month. Let's move on now to some football. Big Ten Media Day. I will be in attendance this week. Hilton, Chicago. Media only. I've already gotten a few requests wondering, Zain, can I attend this event? The answer is no. You had to apply to this event. You had to get approved for this event. It is not open to fans. I guess it's time for me to tell the story of how Big Ten Media Day used to be. So pre-COVID, it used to be a big deal. It used to be this luncheon event. It used to be one day. I think it may have been 2 days. It's got later on in its existence. But it used to be this big thing where alumni from all the schools would pay big money to buy tables, and you could watch the press conferences and meet the coaches, and they do autograph signings and posters and all that stuff. I even have a ball that's signed by every Big Ten coach, and I can't find it to this day. It's from over a decade ago. But it used to be this big, big event. It used to be a lot bigger than what it is now, to where, alumni would come in and fans would come in and, you could interact. This was the pre-NIL era, for more specificity. But it was very cool because you could go around to different booths, and they had just this crazy setup. And the food used to be the same every year, and now it's totally stripped down. It's media only. It's 3 days, 6 teams a day now. It's an 18-team Big Ten, as it has been the last couple of years. In fact, because this is public information, let me just tell you guys who is going to be attending this week's festivities. There are a total of 54 student athletes who are going to be attending, representing 18 schools. Let's go over the first day. It kicks off on Tuesday with Illinois. Illinois brings back Matthew Bailey and Juice Clark, as well as new quarterback Caden Hauser, who's a transfer from East Carolina with a formal season as well at Michigan State. Then looking over at Iowa, Zach Lutner, defensive back, Jaden Montgomery, linebacker, Addison Ostringa at tight end, and of course, your Hawkeyes football coach, Kirk Ferentz, who is right now the longest tenured coach in the conference. Penn State, a brand new look under Matt Campbell. Rocco Becht has come with him from Iowa State. Anthony Donko at offensive line and Tony Rojas at linebacker. Rutgers, who have some expectations, but I think their talent is more interesting overall, especially KJ Duff at wide receiver. They also have Guaspena Asamoah at offensive line, and of course, Antoine Raymond at running back, one of the better running backs in the country, led by Greg Schiano, of course. And then, of course, USC, they're a prominent team this year to potentially make the postseason. Jide Esperini at defensive tackle, Jaden Mayava, of course, a quarterback, and Alex Van Sumeren at defensive tackle. Then, of course, for Wisconsin to round out day one, Chris Brooks at wide receiver, Sebastian Cheeks at linebacker, Matthew Chung at safety, and, of course, Luke Fickell is your Badgers head football coach. Could it be his last season if they don't make a bowl game? Then the new look Michigan State Spartans, led by good old Pat Fitzgerald, Jordan Hall at linebacker, Nikai Martinez at safety, and Alessio Milosevic at quarterback, and obviously the aforementioned Fitzgerald. Then you go to row the boat for Minnesota, Maverick Barnowski at linebacker, Drake Lindsay at quarterback, and of course Anthony Smith at defensive line. Then, of course, you get to the heavyweights to close out the day as such. And then you get to a bit of a downer. So the heavyweights are Ohio State, 2 perennial Heisman Trophy contenders. And the reason why most of the media will be there on Wednesday is to see Jalen McClain at safety, Julian Sain at quarterback, and of course Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver, the best wide receiver in the country. And then, of course, looking over at their potential Big Ten championship opponents. See, I'm already planting the seed. I told you guys weeks ago that these two teams would be playing in December, and I'm sticking to it through the end of the season. Jamari Johnson, Dante Moore returns a quarterback, passes up his NFL opportunity, and of course, Tietam Tootie or Teote at outside linebacker, and of course, Dan Lanning is your Oregon Ducks football coach. Then rounding out the day, Ryan Brown returns a quarterback for the Purdue Boilermakers, followed by Charles Correa at linebacker, and of course, Denawan Morissetti at wide receiver, led by second-year Boilermakers coach Barry Odom. Then, of course, the new look UCLA Bruins under new coach Bob Chesney brings Nico Eliamiyama, who does not have as much controversy and or hype as he did around him this past season. Cole Martin at defensive back, and Samuel Omosigo at linebacker, and of course, led by the aforementioned Bob Chesney. Then the defending national champion Indiana Hoosiers open up the final day of Big Ten Media Day festivities. Isaiah Jones at linebacker, Carter Smith at offensive line, and of course, Tyree Tucker at defensive line, of course, led by good old Kurt Signetti. Then, in what could be his final season as Terrapins coach, Mike Loxley brings Michael Hershey at offensive line, Malik Washington at quarterback, and of course Daniel Wingate at linebacker for the Terrapins. And then Michigan, led by new coach Kyle Whittingham, brings back one of the best running backs in the nation in Jordan Marshall. Obviously, defensive tackle Trey Pierce is also with them. And of course, everybody's favorite and or least favorite quarterback, depending on who you ask. I actually like him. I hope he is successful. Bryce Underwood at quarterback. And then Matt Rule brings in his center, Justin Evans, Luke Lindenmeyer at tight end, and of course at cornerback, Andrew Marshall. Matt Rule, one of the few coaches with a quarterback battle at the moment in Lincoln. Then you look over at Northwestern, Robert Fitzgerald, Caleb Komawafe at running back, and of course Griffin Wilde at wide receiver represent the Wildcats, and David Braun. The Wildcats looking to make it 2 years in a row that they are bowl eligible, but given the new trend as of late in Evanston, if it's an even year, Northwestern usually is not a good football team, going 4-8 in 2024, and of course only winning one game in 2022. Then looking over at Washington to round out Big Ten Media Days for 2026, Landon Hatchett at center, Jacob Manu at inside linebacker, and of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Damon Williams Jr., the quarterback, led by yours truly, Jed Fitch. So there you go. That is the Big Ten Media Days lineup. You can catch every single day of Big Ten Media Day beginning at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. It may even be earlier than that, only on Big Ten Network as well. So shout out to everybody who makes this event possible on a yearly basis. It's the first time it's back in Chicago in several years. Looking very forward to it. The only other one I've ever done as media was 4 years ago at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. That was a stacked year with Chase Brown and Sidney Brown being two of the headliners for Illinois that season. And of course, as we know, that was the start of the Brett Bielema Renaissance, which is where Illinois is today as a program. And shout out to the 77 people and shout out Red Grange. So how fitting is that? Anyway, let's move on to some basketball. The WNBA All-Star Game was last night. I don't want to talk about the actual game itself. In fact, I don't even care who won the game. I want to talk about Kathy Engelberg getting booed in my city at the United Center in front of a sold-out crowd. You want to talk about the lack of excitement, apathy, morale, any word you can use to describe the current state of this league. People are frustrated. People are upset, whether it's Sophie Cunningham, whether it's what happened between Caitlin Clark and USA Today a couple days ago. People are fed up. People just want to see good basketball and they want to see the game grow. It's as simple as that. We'll get to their counterparts in just a few minutes here. But Kathy Engelberg getting booed is the antithesis or the epitome or the smoking gun or the climax, whatever you want to call it, of what her tenure has been. First, it's her skipping out on exclusive interviews with Dan Patrick. Number two, it's her dancing around the question as to whether she'll be the commissioner. Number three, it's the media not asking anything about what's going on with Caitlin Clark and her relationship with Caitlin Clark. No one's asking about what Sophie Cunningham is doing outside of basketball to grow her own brand. And I'm sure she'd give a very PR-ish answer that that's up to Sophie Cunningham, what she wants to do. But you're supposed to be the one helping promote your own sport. So when people go out and do the things that Sophie Cunningham does, i.e., decide to be a guest ring card girl at UFC 329 before Patty Pimblett fights Benoit Saint-Denis, and people are supporting it because she has the charisma and she has the look, and the outfit was literally perfect for that occasion, even though she didn't even know she was doing it before walking in the building. I don't know. I feel like other commissioners would be propping that up. I think it's what the difference is between, her and Adam Silver and Dana White and some of these other outspoken figureheads of their respective organizations where they're going to say whatever they feel like. And Kathy Engelberg, to me, decides to hide behind a shield and, she should be celebrating that, we brought the All-Star Game to Chicago. It's the third biggest media market in the country. And I don't know. I just felt like the vibe last night, and I wasn't even there. I wanted to go last night. It didn't end up working out, but it felt like the vibe there was very, very mixed. I don't know how to feel other than it didn't feel like it was a celebration of the game. I could be wrong. I want to hear from people who were there because I know a few that were in attendance. And to me on TV, it just didn't feel like it was holistically there. I really don't know what to say other than it's a disappointment. It's a real disappointment. But you want to know what isn't a disappointment? Well, there's one thing that's left on this program today that is a disappointment. There's another thing on here that isn't a disappointment. Let's talk about the non-disappointment first. LeBron James has made his decision. He's going to the Philadelphia 76ers for what presumably will be his final NBA season. I mean, shoot, man, they are the NBA Finals contenders if I've ever seen them. The team that they have this year and who they're bringing back alongside LeBron, there's no excuse. This team is in the Eastern Conference Finals against whoever, Celtics, Knicks, whoever they want. But to get to the finals with this team would be phenomenal, and it would validate LeBron's legacy of the best player in the last 20 years. I'm not going to say all time, but I think if he wins a championship in Philadelphia, having now won titles with what would it be? With 3 different franchises, it would be, I would think. Let's see, Lakers. No, it would be more than that. It would be Lakers, Cavs, Sixers, and Heat. It would be 4 of them, right? I mean, to win a title potentially with 4 different teams would be unreal. I would be in full support of that. I'm not even a LeBron fan, but him going to Philadelphia with the talent that they have back, oh man. I'm not even a Philly fan. I'm going to start watching these Sixers games too because I want to see how he plays. And, there's going to be all this debate. Oh, load management. They're going to save him for the games that are important. No. This is LeBron James. This is his final year, presumably. The NBA is going to pull out all the stops to make sure you see LeBron James on your TV screens as many times as possible during the season beginning in October. It's as simple as that. Speaking of basketball season and to round out the show, the Michigan-Duke men's basketball game has been canceled. It's very unfortunate. This was supposed to be a big game, an NCAA tournament type of game in non-conference play. It is no longer happening, unfortunately. There were some things that held the game up, including broadcast rights. Duke keeps its Amazon Prime agreement. It'll just play somebody else. Michigan will move on. Michigan, I think, has lost a bit of the aura since losing Dusty May. I don't know much about the interim coach, but if he has any sort of swagger like Dusty May, Michigan should still be a fun team to watch. They will be one of the best teams in the Big Ten, but to lose out on this non-con game that a lot of people were going to be tuning in for is extremely, extremely, extremely disappointing as such. So there are kind of my thoughts on that. We'll talk about this more as the season gets closer, but this game is no longer happening. Could it happen in the NCAA tournament? Absolutely next spring. All right, let's get into one final thing if we can here. Let's shout out some of the upcoming programming that's taking place on the network, and I just wanted to pop this one final time, and that is to listen to Zain Zinger Part 2. You can catch Sunday's episode and or replay, which will be ending in the next couple minutes, right here on YouTube and or X on all the feeds that I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. But speaking of what is to come, let's talk about some network programming, which leads me to one of my favorite reads of all the 17 shows that we have on the network. And let's do this here if we can, because let's promo what is coming up tonight. It is the ETB Lounge with Calvin McCord and Nick DiMartino every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. The weekend's almost over, but the conversation is just heating up. Kick back for the ETB Lounge tonight, Sunday, with Calvin McCord and Nick DiMartino every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Join us for a 3-hour, well, it's actually 2 hours now, 2-hour live format where we unite the full panel of ETB hosts to break down a pivotal day in sports, from the prestige narratives of major championships and MLB afternoon slates, which there will be a lot of those over the next several weeks, to the chaos of the NBA playoff picture. Well, the NBA postseason's over, but you get the point. It's going to be the NFL playoff picture, insert week here. You get the idea. We cover it all. Whether you're here for the happy hour prestige or the spillage, where we roast the day's biggest blunders and gambling bad beats, the lounge is your home for literal sports therapy in a virtual sense of the word. Only on the ETB Network YouTube channel. Subscribe right now. YouTube.com/ETBNETWRK. Let's plug a few more shows. We have a couple more minutes here. Monday night, Fight IQ. It's a big week for my former co-host, Tom Albano, as he will be covering PFL Long Island on Friday. But to begin his week, he will be stepping into the cage. Fight IQ breaks down the world of combat sports with the precision of a championship game plan every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, from analyzing ground control at PFL events, which he will certainly be doing a whole lot of next week, to breaking down the technical mastery of the world's best strikers. We cover the technique, the drama, and the business of the fight game. If you want to understand the IQ behind the world's most dangerous athletes, quite literally, Tom has you covered every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Again, it's only on the ETB Network YouTube channel. Subscribe today, youtube.com/ETBNETWORK. And then finally, one final read before we do our sign-offs. Callan's Cranium with Callan McCorrick will air this Wednesday night at midnight Eastern, or Tuesday on the West Coast at 9 p.m. Pacific. When the lights go down, the deep dives begin. Join Callan McCorrick for Callan's Cranium, airing Wednesdays at midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday nights. This is a late-night journey into the psychology, the strategy, and the fascinating oddities of the sports world. We explore the angles others miss and the stories that define the mental side of the competition. If you're looking for a perspective that stays with you long after the final whistle, go inside the Cranium every week. Again, that is only on the ETB Network YouTube channel. Subscribe today. All right. That will do it for another edition of Zain Zinger Part 2. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much to the 82 people that popped into today's stream. As always, to begin your Sunday morning here, wherever you may be in the world. Right now, it is 10:32 a.m. Central, 11:32 a.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, over on the West Coast, it is still just past 8:30 a.m. But nonetheless, though, that'll do it. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Come back tonight, if you so choose, for the ETB Lounge again with Callan McCorrick, Nick DiMartino, and a whole panel of guests. But until next time, I'm Zain Bando. This has been the July slate for Zain Zinger Part 2. I will see you in August, everyone. Have a good one. Take care. Thanks so much for your time. As always, it's always my pleasure to do this every single Sunday with you guys. Have a good one. Take care. Enjoy the downtime in sports. And we will catch you guys very soon. Have a good rest of your day and have a great start to the week as we roll into the month of August, which means today is the final Sunday without the sport we like to call football. We'll see you guys soon. Have a good one, everyone. Cheers. Thanks.